Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for LGK Perspective for Parents. We know the effects of COVID-19 on our homes is traumatic. It is a traumatic event. And as parents, you may have had a neighbor or a school teacher tell you, oh, your child is so well behaved, so angelic, so precious. But now that you're at home with them 24/7, they're like little terrors, like baby Jack Jack in the movie The Incredibles. Well, we're happy to welcome Mary Bartlett. She grew up at Lake Grove Presbyterian Church and recently came on staff with us. She is married to John, and together they have two children, Georgia, who is 2, and Wolf, who is 5. And we want to talk about how to hold on to God's peace in our homes, in the chaos of tantrums and anger. So welcome, Mary. We're glad that you're here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, Mary, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experiences about parenting?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a unique situation in that my son Wolf is adopted. He entered the foster care system when he was about, I think, 16 months old. We ended up with him when he was about 2 and fully adopted him last fall. Because of that, you can probably hear them in the background actually, but he kind of comes with his own set of, pre-existing traumas that this just obviously escalates. And then we have our biological daughter, Georgia, who's 2. And I'd say before all of this happened, we had Wolf in therapy. He was in preschool. He had his jujitsu classes, and we were managing everything fairly well. And then, of course, all of that stopped. And it was that where he did great at school. He was wonderful at school for the most part, and saved it all for us, which we know is, it really is I'm glad that he feels safe enough to release the anger and emotions with us. But it is so exhausting as parents. And so now to have that escalated where not only does he have some anger issues, he's developed some anxiety on top of that, which I think a lot of kids have. And I almost didn't notice it. My first realization was a while back. I went to go trim his nails because his sister's nails were so long. And I was like, oh, it's time to trim the nail. And he had no nails. I was like, buddy, I didn't even realize that he'd been chewing them right down. But I think regardless of what kids are going through right now or what they were going through beforehand, there's more anxiety, there's more anger, there's more stress, there's more sadness.
Yeah, it sounds like anger and anxiety are closely related.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that nail biting is really common. My oldest, my 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old, is a nail biter, and it's down to, I don't know, millimeters of his nails, and just one way how they deal, right? That's how they cope with inexpressible anxiety.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's hard too about the kids. I mean, my kids, we are very open and honest about what's going on in a kid-friendly way, and they call it the sickness, which I kind of love because it sounds almost like a dystopian novel, or I don't know, I just love it. And so they'll say, "Can we go to the park?" And I'll say, "Oh, unfortunately not. Do you know why?" And they go, "Yeah, because of this sickness." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why." And so they'll bring it up and talk about it, but even with that, it's still, kind of an intangible, difficult thing for them to wrap their heads around. And, we talk about it and they're very good at, we talk a lot about their different emotions and how they're feeling. But when you're so young, knowing the word for it and knowing what to do with it are 2 very different things.
I think that's really wise, is they don't have the words to put in it. And the is going to be there regardless of whether or not they have the words. And I also think I really admire you, Mary, for answering the questions to as much as they can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of giving them the framework that, yeah, this is a sickness. This is what's happening and we don't know when it's going to stop. But I'll certainly tell you when I do know more information.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how you said, you recognize that when Wolf has a tantrum or is, very aggressive and angry, that he knows that he's in a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
that he can do that with you. But how does that affect you? So knowing, yes, like knowing if it's mind, I know that this is a safe place. It's a gift that he can be himself and relax.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me a little bit about how that affects you.
It's hard. And I mean, early on, he realized that, when he was 3 and Georgia was an infant, he realized that if he was angry and aggressive towards us, we wouldn't react very strongly. But he realized if he threw a toy at baby Georgia, he would get a big reaction. He would get a lot of attention. And kids are smart and they will find a way to get their needs met.
Mm-hmm.
And so even now, if he is violent towards me, I don't like it, but it's easier for me to remain calm and remind him, buddy, I cannot let you hurt me. We aren't allowed to hurt people. I wouldn't let anybody hurt you. But then when he hurts Georgia, that's hard. That's a lot harder for me to keep my cool. And he knows it. And, he's smart. And he's not even doing it because he wants to hurt his sister. He's doing it because he has these big emotions and doesn't know what to do with them, and knows that if he does this, he'll get mom to have a big emotion too. And so we've worked a lot on, I still try and remain as calm as possible. And if I have my husband or my parents in the house with me, it's a lot easier to get the kids separated. And I really try and tell him that you are not allowed to hurt your sister ever, ever, ever. I can tell that you want my attention. Once your body is calm, we can go sit on the couch and we can snuggle and we can have that special time together. Because most of the time, that's what he's wanting. He's wanting my attention. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I always say is really tricky with him is I know how to get him to behave really well. I know what to do. I give him lots and lots of choices so he feels really like he's in control and has a lot of power over the situation. I know that he wants time completely engaged with me. I know he wants me to watch those weird YouTube shows where other kids are playing video games and he's just watching, and I don't get them at all, but I know kids are obsessed with them and he wants me to sit and watch those with him. And if I'm on 24/7, I can usually prevent any meltdowns, not always, but I can probably prevent most of the violence. But I can't be on 24/7.
No.
And I have to remind myself that, that's why he does well at school, is because the teachers don't have to be on 24/7. They are on. And I'm a preschool teacher myself, so I really know that. We're on for a few hours a day, and we can react in the best possible way. But when you're a parent, you cannot be on 24/7. And I have to give myself permission and grace to know that, yes, I probably could have prevented that meltdown, but the cost would have been me having a meltdown later in the day, So it's hard. It's to remember that we all need different things right now, and it's important that I get what I need as well as him getting what he needs to the best of my ability.
I absolutely love that. I love how you talked about you recognizing that his outbursts are not necessarily correlating with what he needs. I think somewhere our child's anger loves to trick us. So we think their outburst is what the attention, that's what they want, but it's so much more than that. And you named so many of the reasons why he would have an outburst, or anyone would have an outburst, but that that you can curb his outbursts, but that being on is exhausting as well. And it makes me think of that Bible verse where Paul says God's grace is sufficient, and that's so easy to say. Yeah, God's grace is sufficient for me. It's enough for me. But in practice, it's so much deeper than that, and it's challenging to really just rely on. You're right. I don't have to be on all the time, especially at home. Like, that's the place where we shouldn't feel like we have to be on. But then to be able to rely on God's full, encompassing grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think to give ourselves grace to forgive us when we haven't responded. I think the time there was a day that I put John in his room on a particularly bad day, and I shut the door, and his response to me was, well, I didn't think we slam doors in this family. And I said, oh, that's not slamming a door. This is slamming a door. I slammed the door so hard that Mark came upstairs and said, anyone else need a breather up here? And just that, that is now something we say in our family a lot. Well, I didn't think we slammed doors in this family. As you were talking, I was thinking about, we've been talking a lot, all of us, about if there's some sign that as you're anticipating, especially for older kids, that we're reaching that anger, we can see we're all getting to the tipping point. Is there a sign that your family could have that kind of, alerted everybody? A stop sign, a triangle, hand over your heart. Sometimes that's a good way of saying, oh, wait, we're tipping towards that place where we're going to go off the.
Yeah, we usually we'll do stop, just because when Georgia was little, that's the baby sign for stop.
Right.
And that's just kind of stop, pause. I know you're mad. I see you. I hear you. But just, and it's been beneficial to, I think he's at a mental space too, where he's old enough where he can kind of, okay, take a minute, but doesn't always work.
No. Right. And old enough, but also because you've set the model, right? This is what you can do. Not perfectly and not all the time, but this is what you can do, is to the hand motion. And then for them to learn to self-recognize, self-identify, like, this is the feeling that I'm having, is those are lifelong tools that we are helping them learn and practice. Yeah. I think about the prayer, and I said it the last time with LGK Perspective for Parents, but the serenity prayer, because I feel like, again, this is a time where we can just cling on to things that are familiar to us. And it's a prayer that's so familiar. People don't even know like where it came from, but they know that it's an AA, and it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And just in those simple words, surrendering to God, in those moments where we feel like, our kid is driving us nuts. They're angry. They're triggering our anger. But if we could if we can anticipate, or we can see it, because often we could have a sign, right? Something like this, or even like this, anything to help us all visually in the room realize, hey, we need to just take a moment and stop.
I'd love to share one other thing that I recently did for myself, which I wish I had done this years ago, but Wolf had been complaining that I was snuggling more with Georgia lately. And I'm so proud of him for bringing that up and being able to say that, because Georgia's love language is snuggles. She would be constantly touching me if she could. And so that night I went through my phone while the kids were asleep and looked up pictures of Wolf, and just found a ton of pictures where he and I were snuggling. But then as I was going through, I was just making an album of just the cutest pictures of him from when he was little and fun things we had done together. And I told my husband, I was like, you need to remind me that anytime I'm starting to just lose my patience with him and say things that I shouldn't say, to go look at that album, because it has made a world of a difference when I'm just pulling my hair out to go and just look at the pictures and remind myself why I'm so blessed to have this kid. And that the next morning we sat and we looked through the pictures together, and it was just, I'm recommending it to all my friends now. I'm like, when you're about to pull your hair out, you can go look back at that album and remember how cute they were when they were little, and how blessed that you are that God put them in your life. And it's been really helpful for me, at least.
That sounds super healing.
Mm-hmm.
Just an opportunity to look at pictures and think about the memories and just be healed in that moment. That's a great idea, Mary. I love it. Absolutely.
I do too.
And in that, as you were saying, like you're saying things that maybe you shouldn't say, or think things that you shouldn't think. But I have also love the verse, Leslie, that you shared, Numbers 14:18, and it says, the Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, and forgiving sin and rebellion. And that's an amazing God who sees us as his children. And, you know, he is slow to anger and abounding in love and forgiving always of all of our sins. And so I hope that we can, as parents, just hold on to those promises. Well, thank you again, all of you, for joining us for LGK Perspective for Parents. Until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later. Bye.